Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. I'm your host, Juan Ayala, and this is Actors with Issues. Hello, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends. Welcome to another episode of Actors with Issues, where we talk shop with guests from TV, film, and Broadway, exploring their careers, breaking down industry myths, and discovering what it means to be an actor today. I am your host, Juan Ayala. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are joined by an actor and performer of stage and screen, who you've seen in Days of Our Lives, as a contestant in season 12 of RuPaul's Drag Race, and now starring in Make Me Gorgeous, which is in performances at the Playhouse 46 in New York City. Please welcome Darius Rose, aka Jackie Cox. Darius, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, as I just said before we started recording, got to see Make Me Gorgeous last night and was just completely blown away. I have so much like respect and admiration for people who do one person shows. Like that is just as if monologues weren't terrifying enough. It's like here's a 90-minute one with a bunch of characters and just tackling that. And I mean, such a phenomenal story too. I knew very little going in to what the content of the show would be, and just yeah. So speaking of the show, what have you learned throughout this process of taking on this story and the many characters that you portray in the show?
Um, I've learned a lot. What I haven't actually quite learned is how my brain does it all. That's probably the thing I'm like, how is this happening? Um, I wasn't sure I was gonna be able to do it, but I believed in myself. Donnie, our director, believed in me a lot, and so I learned that I could do it first and foremost. Because it is quite a big piece.
Mm.
Um, and Wade, who originated the role and also contributed to some of the material in the piece and helped kind of craft it into what it is today, did such an amazing job. So I was just trying to step into those shoes, make it my own, um and challenge myself. And so that's probably the biggest thing I learned, was that I could do it.
Mm.
And it's been a wild ride ever since.
And how did it come your way? Did you have to audition for it initially? Were you approached? How did all that come by?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. They were looking to extend into the spring. And Wade is off to Water for Elephants on Broadway. So Wade could no longer continue in the role. Um, Wade is good friends with Willem, who
Mm.
was on RuPaul's Drag Race and also was in Titanic recently off Broadway. And uh, I believe Wade had reached out, I think maybe to Willem about seeing the play or maybe being interested in doing the play, but Willem wasn't really available to do it. So Willem and I actually work with the same manager, amazing woman named Gina. And so when Gina got wind, she asked the producers if they'd be interested in looking at me for the role.
Mm.
Um, and so I had a really, I went to go see the play. This all happened very quickly at the end of December. I went to go see the play for the first time. I really enjoyed it. I thought Wade was incredible. I wasn't sure if I could do it myself, but I had a lovely lunch for a couple hours with our amazing playwright and director Donnie. And Donnie said, I think you can do this. And my husband likes watching you on Days of Our Lives. So come do it.
It was kismet after that.
Yeah, exactly.
And going back, a bit to your earlier years. So you were born originally in Canada.
I
When did
was.
you come to the States, and was it for college that you came, like for
No, no,
UCLA
no.
or
I've been
before
here
that?
most of my life. So some kids are like an army brat. I'm a medical research brat. So I moved around wherever my mom got different research grants to. She studied IBS and Crohn's, did research on those diseases. And so when I was a toddler, she got a research grant in San Francisco. So we moved there, but when I was very young, and then we kind of bounced all around the country. And then I ended up in Southern California for college, and then I moved to New York a couple of years after that.
And I read that, and just have heard through interviews and whatnot that your first time in drag was doing Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Um,
Yeah.
was that was drag never ever on your radar before that? Was there like no aspirations to try drag, or was that truly like the first time?
Well, no, I mean, I definitely had like for Halloween and stuff, I dressed up,
Right.
but I don't, I think in 2003, I was either 2003 or 2004, whatever the first Halloween after Wicked came out. I dressed up as Elphaba for fun. No one knew I was not thought I was the Wicked Witch. Um, uh, but that wasn't like, really drag per se. It was, the Wicked Witch, which I'd also done when I was a little kid. I loved being a witch when I was a little kid. Um, and then I think for a friend's party once, I dressed up as Sharpay Evans from High School Musical.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, my first like experience, and I say my first time in drag was really Hedwig because for me, drag is performance.
Mhm.
And so my first time like feeling the power of being in drag on a stage with a microphone in heels was through that musical.
Mhm.
So Hedwig is a character who is just so strong and powerful in her ability to use song and drag to like convey her message. And so that was the first time I really felt the power of drag, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah. And sort of going back to Make Me Gorgeous, there's so many different characters that you play throughout the show. Do you have a favorite?
Yeah.
It's such a tacky question, but I'm just curious because you do such a great job with like all the different voices and accents and things. Is there
Yeah,
one
it's
that you
over
wish maybe was
20
in the show a little more?
characters. It's over 20 characters in one night. My favorite is my Candy. I love Candy a lot. She is the first trans woman that young Kenny Marlowe meets. And I think not only do I love her like as a character, I also just love what she represents in the story, which is she sees Kenny before Kenny kind of sees herself as Kate. It's
Mhm.
not just not that it's a spoiler, but the at the end of the play, Kenny decides to transition and becomes Kate Marlowe. And that's the end of the play. Um, and it's interesting to me because, sometimes other people see us before we see ourselves.
Mhm.
Much like maybe Donnie saw me as being able to do this show before I even believed I could. Candy is someone who sees Kenny and it's like, oh, you're one of us. She says that right away. She says, oh, you're a new slice of bread. We've got another one for the toaster. You're coming with us. And she's the first one who really gets Kenny to start kind of really expressing gender, not just kind of drag on the stage, but also kind of the gender that Kenny feels within themselves and later herself as Kate. So I love that character. And I just love being her. She's so strong. She's such a badass. Um, you know, Imagine being a trans woman working the streets of Los Angeles in the 1940s. Like
Yeah. Tough.
how strong you'd have to be to hold down, not just being just a working sex worker, but also a kind of a mother to some of these other queer people that she kind of took under her wing. So she's probably one of my favorite characters to portray in the piece. Yeah.
And if sort of hypothetically, of course, if they were to make this into like a three-person show where they maybe fleshed out some of those smaller
Yeah.
characters and whatnot, is there anyone that comes to mind that you would want on stage with you to play some of those other people?
One person who I actually thought of would be because when I saw the play, I was like, I don't know, like I'm not necessarily comfortable portraying a trans woman,
Mm,
because I'm a gender expansive person who uses all sorts of pronouns and stuff, but I am not a trans woman. I've never lived that experience. So much of Kenny's life I've lived. I've been a drag queen, I've done burlesque, I've moved all over the country, I've kind of done a lot of those things. I've had difficult relationships with my parents, and those are all
mm,
things that I really relate to. But I'm not a trans woman. And so I actually had a really great conversation with fellow actor and amazing trans woman, Dana Aaliyah Levinson, who I love so much. And there's a version of this play where I would want her to be in it with me, and she would take on and, do the last chapter as Kate.
mm,
And maybe she would portray Candy or a few other characters as well. But she's so amazing. That's like one way to think of how this play could work. Another way, of course, is like a mini series where you have a number of actors playing Kenny and Kenneth and later Kate Marlowe.
yeah,
So it's a piece that's really interesting. And one of the things that because it's a pre-trans narrative, it's a story of someone who was celebrated for their in some ways masculine body as a sex worker. Um, it would be hard to ask a trans actress to go back and do that kind of
yeah.
work. But there is like a part two of this play that I would love to see someday, with a trans actress in the lead would be incredible.
Because with queer roles and whatnot, we there's usually upset when a straight actor or a cis actor gets cast in roles that they shouldn't have, taken. They should have just,
Yeah.
in my opinion, it starts with the actor. They should be a true ally and say, I don't want to audition for this role. It's not mine to take. That's just my 2 cents. Uh, but
Yeah.
someone had brought up sort of with trans characters, especially in projects that talk about the journey
Hmm.
of them before they're coming out, before their exploration and discovering their identity, and sort of like, would you want to put a trans person through that again? And
Yeah.
as you brought up that point, it's such a sensitive, subject matter for them. It's very personal, and yeah, but I think that there, as you mentioned, there is definitely a sort of like a part two to this. Make me more gorgeous or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, not that I think they're a great person, but if we're imagining the biopic of Caitlyn Jenner's life, I'm assuming we're going to have either a trans man or a cis man playing Kate before she transitioned, right? I mean,
Mm,
if you
right.
think about all of the things that Caitlyn did before she became the, you know, weirdo person spouting weird things that she is, as an
Yeah.
Olympic athlete, you would probably have someone very presenting as that,
Right.
So I think because Kenny was kind of those things, celebrated for his body, etc. at that time, it's something I thought about a lot. And one thing that I did talk about with the playwright and director Donnie, I made a slight change to the play that's a little different textually than when Wade performed the role. And Wade's also, been working on this for 2 years and took this down from a 2.5 hour piece to a 90-minute piece to
Oh,
you know. One small change I made at the end of the play is originally the audience actually goes with Kate to the fundraiser, and Kate comes out and she says, "I'm Kate Marlowe. Welcome to my fundraiser. Thank you all for coming." Um, I didn't feel comfortable kind of being Kate for other people because, like I said, I'm not a trans woman.
mm,
Um, so instead, the play, we talk about the fundraiser happening, and the play ends with the reveal of her name, in that it's a beginning of Kate's journey. So I'm
yeah.
I'm there to pass the baton to Kate. It's something that was really important to me as a queer person, as someone who respects the trans experience. Was one little small change that we made to the play. And it's as actors, we're never the person, right? We're never the exact person that we're playing, but
Right.
we draw on the reality of our life. And so much of my life is so similar to the lived experience of Kenny Marlowe that I felt confident in a lot of aspects of it. But that was just one that I asked if we could make a small change to, just to be more respectful of
Yeah.
the truth of who Kate is. And like I said, I'm dying for either the miniseries or the part two of the play where some amazing trans woman comes in and steals the show.
Just do it in rep. We'll do part one and part two. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, I love that. That's very admirable of you to have had that sort of foresight to want to make that change. Because I feel like a lot of people would be like maybe scared to change the material. I feel like actors often are, scared to make those
Well,
changes.
I brought it up in my first meeting about the play after seeing it. I was like, hey,
Mhm.
I love this play, but I'm not a trans woman. And I'm
Right.
not saying Wade is a trans woman either. And the play is primarily, like I said, about the first, 4 or 5 decades of someone's life before they transition. But I just wanted to be cognizant and clear of, we don't see Kate really at the end of the play. We see her
Mhm.
decide to become Kate.
Yeah.
And she, you see that last glimmer of her, and then that would be, part two or the beginning of a new story.
We have a section of the show called Dear Darius. We change it for every
Okay.
guest. So these are fans and like user submitted questions. We post it on our
Uh-oh.
Reddit, on our subreddit and whatnot. Um, and it's funny. I love how many of the Drag Race fans know you're a Trekkie. So there's lots of Trekkie related questions here. So and these names always crack me up. Bondful asks if you could meet one Star Trek character for real, not the actor, but the character, who would you pick?
Well, that's a hard question because I met Whoopi Goldberg and it was like meeting Guinan. If you remember on my season of Drag Race, I got to meet Whoopi Goldberg and I was very excited to meet Guinan and I told
Mhm.
her that. Uh, and I told RuPaul that. I was like, RuPaul, she plays a being who's been around for hundreds of years. And RuPaul's like, yeah, I know, I know. So like it would have been Guinan, but I feel like I've already met Guinan. Um, I'd be scared to meet a lot of them. I'd be scared to meet Q. I'd be scared to meet but it would be very cool to meet Q. And I have met John Delancey. We're actually in a movie coming up together.
Oh, really?
We are, yeah. Should be more on that coming soon.
Mm.
Um, I'd be scared to meet Q. I'd probably, you know who I think I would be friends with? I feel like I'd be friends with like Wesley Crusher, like, if we were both like, you know, kids at the academy or whatever. Um, I love Jerry Ryan, who plays Seven of Nine. I think I would like to meet her. I would like to meet Seven of Nine, and I'd like to meet Spock.
Mhm.
I think those are the two I'd like to meet.
Which Star Trek character would you want to be paired with for a drag makeover challenge?
There are two. The first one, which I think like I'm like keep telling my Lower Decks friends, is there needs to be an episode of Star Trek Lower Decks where Boimler, Jack Quaid's character, has
Mhm.
to get in drag, and I have to put him in drag because of reasons. So I'm waiting for that episode to happen. Um, I want them to do a whole like gay pride episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. Um, would love to put Boimler in drag, and would also love to put Spock in drag, just because, yes, hilarious.
Snap Crackle Mom asks, "What's the wildest part of working on Days of Our Lives?"
The wildest part is just how fast it is.
Mm,
It's they film one episode a day, so you have
insane.
one take for every scene. So like people always give soap opera actors like a bad rap, but it's like
And I
they
don't get
had
why.
they had one camera blocking rehearsal and one like run through, and then they film it. That's it. There's
Yeah.
no like there's no time to rehearse. You don't even get to like really work with your scene partner. It's just so fast. It
Mm,
is madness how fast it is. That's crazy. Also just this is crazy how all the sets kind of interlock, because it's just a lot of different permanent sets. So like, it's like, oh, the one side of this bar is actually the back of this hospital, is actually the front of this hotel. It's like, and they're all like, because there's so many locations in a soap opera that they're
mm.
constantly going to, that like there are just all these standing sets that are like oddly connected. Um, so that's interesting to see as well.
I'm sure you've been asked this 1,000 times. But would you consider doing All Stars? Because there's a couple All Stars related questions. Or like a versus the world. I feel like every real girl's been asked that before. But is that on your
Sure.
radar at all?
I mean, it's not really on my radar per se. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing uh with my career, both my drag performing and my acting, um, and all of the kind of related things that go with that. Um, I never say never,
Mm,
but it's not like front of mind, or um, someone did on Twitter post like a photo of like a bunch of the girls from the last four seasons and be like, pick one from each row, and it was a few of my fellow queens from season 12, and I was like, well, if I'm picking anyone, it's going to be Gigi and Crystal and Rockham, who were on that, and I was like, those are my girls, like season 12 reunion. I mean, I just love my season of Drag Race so much.
mm.
And I don't think this is a spoiler, but speaking with my fellow season 12 sisters, Jan and Heidi, who have both done All Stars, they both said that they like doing our season more. So
Oh yeah, I feel like there's so much extra pressure for for All Stars of like you have to like match or do even better. So I feel like there's just this whole added thing and
yeah, I guess I don't even feel that pressure. I just more from like a enjoyment perspective. Like I just really enjoyed filming my season, and it was
mm,
such a joy to meet those queens, and to create these friendships that are now like, I can't believe we filmed it. We filmed almost 5 years ago,
that's insane.
and then we aired 4 years ago, which is crazy.
Yeah. That was actually the first season that I watched as it was airing. I was such a late fan. And then
Late
of course like
adopter.
late adopter. And then like during the pandemic was when I like finally like, pretty much binged through like everything. Um, and also there's an All Stars really question. So which classic All Stars challenge are you confident that you would like just completely like destroy? The girl group, the branding, the ball, the roast, of all those
I'm
sort of
never
recurring
confident in
ones.
anything. You know what I mean? Like I don't, because you never know kind of what is happening. I don't know. There's so many things that like, yeah, I would just go out there and have fun. I mean, I always have more fun, obviously, with like the acting based challenges, like
Mm,
Snatch Game, or like I would have loved to do the soap opera challenge they did the last couple seasons
yeah.
because I love me a soap opera. But Rue is someone who is always looking for like magic, which is how incredible that that's your job to find magic in drag queens. But I think as the show goes on, right, I think her standard becomes a little higher. Like, what's gonna really make her laugh? What's gonna make her
Yeah.
be like, wow, what's gonna really wow her? It's a high standard to meet. So I don't know if I would. Yeah, I guess I'm not one of those people who walks in and is like, I would slay every moment. Like, I don't. I would go there and do my best and have a whole bunch of fun is what I would do.
Mm.
I don't know if that's what the fans want.
And speaking of Snatch Game, did you have a backup for Snatch Game
I
besides?
did. I did. Yeah, I my backups were Julie Andrews, who I would have loved to do. And the other backup was Katharine Hepburn, not the version that was ended up on my Snatch Game season, but I was going to do like a young Katharine Hepburn, very clipped, mid-Atlantic accent.
Yeah.
I was going to do that kind of, she was very bossy.
Mm.
Um, yeah, those were my backups.
And I'm actually curious because I know that one of the other sort of All Stars challenges is like the runway redo, basically. So
Yeah.
is there a look of yours that comes to mind that you would want to like redo and beef up?
There's two. One is because it was so universally hated, but I loved it, was my buttons and bows look. Um just the pink and yellow kind of like big cupcake. I was trying to go for
Yeah.
like a like almost like the pearlies from Mary Poppins, just like very
Yeah.
colorful and bright. I would redo that one. And only because I really liked it, but I feel like the judges wanted something a little bit even maybe bigger, is I would probably redo my purple people eater, and make it even bigger and more kooky crazy.
And this part of the show is called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So this is the part where we sort of air out some dirty laundry about our thoughts on the entertainment industry and things like that. But we start with the positive. So with the good, what is your favorite part about being an actor, working in drag, just being a performer?
Creating is the number one thing, and then the number two thing, which you can do outside of being an actor, but I love it as part of my job, is connecting with people, whether that's the audience. As you know from seeing the show, I speak directly to the audience quite a bit in this
Mm,
play. And obviously in my drag career, I get to do that as well. And even if it's something with a fourth wall, connecting with your fellow actors on stage and or connecting with the creative team. I just love
yeah.
learning about people and what makes them tick and how we all kind of inform each other. It's where kind of all these 20 characters that are in Make Me Gorgeous kind of come from, is all my experience, connecting with people. Yeah, so those are the two things I love the most about this industry.
And in terms of what you dislike, what's something that you think needs to undergo a change about whether it's like, about auditioning,
Mm.
about the whole casting process, anything that comes to mind about the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's so, now that so much is on self-tape, it's so hard to like know how anything goes in this business, to know like, did anyone actually watch this audition? Did they hate it? Who knows? It's like you have no kind of sense of anything. I say that, and then, I recently had an in-person audition, which I hadn't had in so long, and I
Mm.
went and I was like, whoa, this is a lot more stressful than I remembered because on the one nice thing about a self tape is, well, that take went horrible. I'll just do it again. You have like, but in person, it's like that one shot. Um, so I don't know. It's always great to be with people in a room, which is exciting. So more of that if we can. Now that, the pandemic is at bay. And Um, yeah, and then I think just more honest conversations about representation and it being not just like, okay, well, this person, we want to cast a minority, right? You'll hear that. Like, oh, well, this character, we're just gonna shoehorn in a minority. It's like, well, okay, fine, but like one thing that would be great too is more kind of like authentic representation. I'm
Yeah.
finally seeing more parts being written for drag performers, for instance, that are actually like sound like real drag queens that I've met. I for a long time would just get these auditions for like drag queen at a bar counting bills as officers walk in to ask questions. And the drag queens are always like Mae West. They're always like, "Hey, officer, like what you coming in here? Look, well, they're not here, and it's like 2 p.m. Like, why is she even in drag? Like, none
Right.
of this makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like Tu Wong Fu. It's like, why are they in drag? Like, none of
Right.
this makes sense. If they ever make a Tu Wong Fu musical, they have to write some reason why they have to be in drag because it's like it makes no sense that those characters are in drag the entire movie.
Mhm.
You
That's
know,
such a
so
good
it's
point.
like
Yeah.
I want more representation of like real things. You know, would be great, and not just
And
like checking boxes, if that makes sense.
right. Yeah, we actually had so for this other podcast that I produce and host for a company called Media Village, for all of the sort of cultural heritage and history months throughout the year, we have roundtable interviews. We actually had Miss Kasha Davis for our Pride interview last year. And but we just did our roundtable for Black History Month, and one of the actresses, Crystal Ballant, she does a lot of the Mike Flanagan shows on Netflix.
Cool.
Like she was in like Midnight Mass and The Fall of the House of Usher, and she was saying how she remembers approaching Mike, who's the creator and director and like writer of like all of these shows, and when she got cast in the role, she was like, okay, so this character, she's a black woman, she's a mayor's wife. What does she contribute to the community? Like, what is it about her, like about her background that like does it affect it in the community at all? And he was like, no, you're just the best person for the job. Like we liked your performance and we hired you. Like we didn't hire you because you were black, or I didn't write the character specifically to be black. And she was just like,
Mm.
whoa, like because in so many other she was saying in so many other roles she's done, like being black is part of the role. And that's
Mm.
kind of what's front and center rather than no, she's just the mayor's wife and she happens to be a black woman. And it's always so fascinating to get that perspective from actors of like getting that just people can just exist in these communities without it having to be part of it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is I wish that people would just write like real characters, and if you want, you find a great actor, as opposed to like, oh, we need this to be like a Middle Eastern person. Okay, great, go audition. Okay, I'm auditioning, and then I'm like, did they write anything about this person other than their, like they didn't like
Yeah,
finish the writing. They just like put a little box that said like this will be our Middle Eastern character or this will
right.
be our drag queen character, and then like, can you fit into this little box? And you're like, well, what is about the rest of this person? So I think that's interesting, or just cast me in a role that was written for no one, and it's just a interesting person. I don't know. It's
Mm,
it's it's a it's a catch-22 because I'm like, if you're writing something with a specific minority in mind, I would just love for it to be a full character and a
right.
full reason. And if you're not writing it with a specific minority in mind, then like it could be anyone, right? And so we should open the casting to anyone,
Mm.
is my thought.
And in terms of the ugly, so what is something that we should just completely get rid of? What is something in the industry that you're like, why are we still doing this?
Well, I'd love to get rid of the like expectation now that social media exists
Mm.
for like every actor or person to like suddenly be an influencer.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
like I am very grateful that I have an incredible following from Drag Race, but I don't think I'm like an influencer, if that makes sense. Like I
mm,
I share things about my life, or if there are brands or collaborations that I want to do, I do them, but I'm not like here to uh I don't think I necessarily have to be like um a lifestyle brand. You know what I mean? Like
right.
I'm a
Yeah,
like follow me because you think I'm interesting, or my life is
right.
interesting, or the things I do I'm interesting, but I think the expectation is, oh, and like, okay, great, can you actually go into your closet and create a whole like thing about like everything you've ever worn. And I'm like, well, I could.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a lot. So yeah, I'm just, like there's a lot of things that feel like organic to me and things that I'm like happy to, collaborate with on my social media. And especially like I've done a lot of stuff with like nonprofits that I think are important, like
Mhm.
Broadway Cares, etc. And I've done a lot of paid collabs as well for brands that I think make sense with me.
Mhm.
Um, but then the expectation that just because I have a following that I have to like that like has to be all that I do. I'm like, well, I want to share like, pictures of my life.
Yeah. But that's something that a lot of folks have talked about, especially with the rise in popularity of like TikTok over the last like, 4, 5, 6 years of like, why does every actor feel the need that they have to like there's some like weird unspoken expectation. I feel like no one's told me like you need a bigger social media following, but we all think that and we all talk about it. Even though like, no
Yeah.
agent or manager's ever said that, I feel personally to an actor. But that's always
Oh,
in the back of our head
I've heard
for,
some actors who have been told that.
oh, really?
And
Interesting.
dancers especially, because there's so much because TikTok is so conducive to showing off dancing.
Yeah.
I have fully heard
Oh,
from
that
some of
makes
my
sense.
dancer friends who've been told, "Oh yeah, my agent says I have to get more followers."
Mm,
Because in the dance world, that's becoming a thing because dance is so easy to show off on social media,
right.
that I've heard that from dancers of like, "Oh, I have to start making dancing TikToks because that's what they want. Like that's part of the casting process now because
Wow.
they know that if you're cast in a project, you can show it off.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I never I'm friends more so with actors and whatnot, so it's like I can't imagine like how many 6-second monologues are you going to post about,
Yeah, the acting
versus
doesn't translate quite
yeah,
as well to social media, but yeah, comedy as well. Comedy is another one that
yeah.
people want on TikTok.
But as we wrap up our interview, we have a final section called "It's Time for Life's Big Questions." So if you could have any superpower, which would you choose?
Probably like to teleport.
Mm,
I don't want to fly. I just want to like be there.
right.
You know what I mean?
Flying so much work. Um,
Flying is, and I'm scared of heights.
what movie never fails to make you laugh?
What movie never fails to make me laugh? Hmm, it's a good question. I'll probably go with TV show Golden Girls. If that's
Okay.
okay. Am I allowed
Mm.
to?
What is the most spontaneous thing you've ever done?
Oh, sorry. If I was gonna say movie, it would be Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Oh,
Just a
good
great
choice.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the most spontaneous thing I have ever done?
Mhm.
Probably audition for Drag Race. It was not like
Oh, really?
it was not in my plan. It was not like on my list. I was helping a friend with their tape and it was due in like 3 weeks. And I was like, this doesn't seem that hard. I could do it. I just like did it on a whim
Mm.
and it changed the course of my entire life.
Um, if you're having a movie night, horror movie or rom-com?
Uh, n neither. Um, no.
What's your go-to?
We're gonna do a comedy, not a romantic comedy. I'm thinking more like Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar.
Okay. What is your favorite theatrical performance you've seen live?
That's a hard one. Um, mm, like from an actor or like show.
Just live performance. Top three, if it's hard to choose one.
I will say the most incredible ensemble I saw was Come From Away, and just
Oh,
watching them all work together,
mhm.
it was like in such a like a it was such I don't know, I just loved watching all of them. What an incredible ensemble. I saw that opening cast of Come From Away. It's such an amazing time. I haven't seen it since. Like I just I saw it, I loved it. I like jumped to my feet the minute it was over. Um, Probably the most influential on me though would be seeing John Cameron Mitchell finally in Hedwig, in
Mm,
the revival as I
yeah.
missed the original, but to have, seen the movie, done the play, I saw Neil Patrick Harris in it, which who was amazing as well. But then to finally see John's take on it, I was
Mm,
like, and to see John kind of come back to it
yeah.
after, 20 years, it's crazy.
Would you rather do 100 episodes of a sitcom or 13 episodes of a gritty drama?
100 episodes of a sitcom.
Or
I would do both, but I would
right.
love to do a. I would. When I watch like Golden Girls or The Office or Friends or any of those like 30-minute sitcoms, it's like you see like how much, especially by the second season, the actors are just in it with each other and just like able to kind of like work on it with each other. I don't know if you've ever read some of the like backstage stuff of Friends, but like especially the boys, like they were always trying to make everything funnier, funnier,
Yeah.
funnier, funnier. And so like how like crazy to get to do that, especially back then, 22 episodes a year, which is unheard
Yeah.
of now. But yeah, yeah, it's like 100. It's funny. 13 episodes of a drama is like 2 years of a drama today, right? Some of them are like 5 or 6 episodes,
Right.
and 100 episodes of a sitcom is like 10 seasons of a sitcom these days,
Right.
as opposed to it would have been 4 seasons of a sitcom, in the
Yeah.
90s.
Those some of the work I did was like kind of on the tail end of like procedurals and whatnot.
Mm.
It's like the show that one of the shows I worked on the most, the series finale was episode 100. And I was like, shows don't get this far anymore. Like it is so rare because like all these, like you said, all these like 10 episode like limited series or and sitcoms just don't come up that much anymore. Now it's
Yeah,
like
no
the
one's
single
quite
cam comedies.
unlocked the sitcom for the streaming age quite yet.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it almost takes like what I think will eventually happen is because we're going to run out of, eventually everyone will have seen all however many episodes of Friends and The Office and Will and Grace and whatever, sitcoms that have big kind of banks of episodes or Golden Girls, etc. And eventually someone's going to have to be like, "Hey, it's not going to get us a lot of money in the beginning, but we're just going to plop down, we're going to lock these, five great actors in for like 5 years, 20 episodes, and just like make them do it.
Yeah.
And then we'll just put it on Netflix or something, where it's like you have to kind of like, because I don't know how we'll recreate that library of shows because people love that. I mean, I certainly like when I'm tired or stressed, I just put it on a sitcom that I've already seen a million times.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Mm,
You know, I put that on and I just let it go until I'm tired and then I go to sleep.
mm.
Um, you can't really do that with new shows. So it's almost you kind of like got to make somehow a bank of shows. So I don't know how that's going to exist.
Yeah.
Not for us to
It's
solve.
thank God. Don't want that on my plate for sure. It's interesting, like with the rise of or the re-rise, I guess, of Suits, people realizing
Hmm.
like see what happens when you have a show that you let run its course for a long time, Netflix, people will binge the whole thing versus like 13 episodes and canceled. Um,
Yeah, and I will say the worst thing, and this is what I say. So if I'm going to change my thing that has to go in the industry, is you have to give these shows a chance to end, even
yeah,
if it's like a 1 hour wrap up movie,
right.
because it's so unsatisfying to know there are 3 great seasons of a show and then you won't know the end of the story.
Mm,
Like it's like you canceled it, but now we don't know what happens. Like
yeah.
one of them that I think would actually be doing a lot better in streaming if it had gotten an ending is like Two Broke Girls. They never got a finale. They got
Oh, that's
canceled
right.
in the summer hiatus, and then there's no ending. Like, did they ever make money? Like, what is the end of the story? Like, are
Yeah.
they two broke girls forever? Like, it would have taken literally, they could have just like dusted off the sets, given those actors, however much money to make another 22 minutes of just like, what's the end of that story?
Yeah.
What's the end? We got to get endings to stories. So I
Yeah.
want to stop cancellations with no endings.
Yeah. Also, just stop with the intentional cliffhanger to hold the show hostage, like, because then you're either forcing the network to like, well, we have to renew them now, otherwise the fans are gonna upset. Some executives are like, forget the fans, the show's not making money, so it does. The fans will be disappointed. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I see both sides of that because I know the writers want it to be exciting and waiting for the next season,
Right.
but it does suck when it's canceled and you're like, or like Glow is another one.
Yeah.
I wanted to find out the end of that. We'll never know. What
Yeah.
happened to those ladies?
And oh no, not the last one. Sorry. Second to last question. If you could sit down for dinner with any actor, dead or alive, who would it be?
I could sit down to dinner with any actor, dead or alive. Hmm. It's a really good question. I'm trying to think. Probably. Hmm. Yeah, I'm like looking around in my like apartment because I have so many things on the walls of things. Um, yeah, they're not an actor, but I probably would sit down with Alfred Hitchcock because I'd love to know what makes him
Ooh,
tick.
yeah,
Um,
good
I
choice.
think I think he's such an interesting human, and I haven't even seen all of his movies, but the ones I've seen are like because I don't like scary movies, but I think his movies are so like captivating that I
Yeah.
like. There's a few that I just love, like Vertigo. Like I love Vertigo.
Mm,
Um, and I would just love to kind of talk to him about like art
mm,
and like film, um, and like what, yeah, and I'd love to just get a sense of him as a human and what makes him tick.
mm. And good choice, first of all. But, last question. In 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
Just remember you're only there to be yourself.
Love that.
Like you literally can't be anyone else and you can't worry about what literally anyone else is doing. You just are there to be yourself. And either who you are is what they want, or who you are is not what they're envisioning. And that is no one's fault other than you're not the person that they're envisioning. Like that's literally it. It's someone else's show, right? Someone else's thing. And on that note, right, then if you're finding you're not fitting in someone else's work, start making more of your own.
Yeah.
That's what drag was for me is it's a creation of my own that I love and I nurture and I, you know, is my joy. I will be forever the only person who I think will ever play Jackie Cox, but you never know. Uh,
Until you do
yeah,
a
so you're only
biopic.
ever going to be yourself. So you just have to remember that you're just you.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Darius, thank you so, so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Really, really appreciate it. And for, and again, for such a phenomenal performance in Make Me Gorgeous. So for everyone listening, everyone watching, Make Me Gorgeous is in performances at Playhouse 46 in New York City through February 25th. And you can catch Darius in the show until then. Darius, again, thank you so much. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Go to gorgeousplay.com and stay tuned in case there are updates. But come and see us through February 25th. Gorgeousplay.com.
thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to Actors with Issues on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and visit our YouTube channel for full video interviews. Actors with Issues is executive produced and hosted by Hawani Allah. See you next time.